In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a power steering line set on your Toyota Tacoma. This will be located inside of the engine bay. Let's get started. Using a 12mm socket, remove the rear skid plate bolts. These are supposed to have welded nuts on top. These are very common to rust out. Our bolts are spinning. There's a nut up top, so we're going to put a wrench on it and remove the bolt. Remove all 4 bolts for the skid plate. Toyota has these hooks in the front to hold the skid plate so you don't get bonked. Lift up, remove the skid plate. Install the bolts. There should be a welded nut up here. Our nut is gone, so we're going to be threading our bolts into one. Do this on both sides. Using a 17mm wrench, we're going to remove the line from the rack. You should be able to use a wrench to remove this fitting. Ours is so corroded that we're not going to be able to do this. You should be able to use a 17mm wrench to remove this fitting. However, ours is not going to come off. So we're going to use a pair of cutters, cut the line, and then use a socket and put it over the fitting to remove the fitting from the rack. Before removing the fitting, be sure you have a collection bucket under you. Fluid will come out. I have the line cut off of the rack. We're going to get our socket over that. I'm going to use a hammer and tap it on. Remove the fitting. Remove the return line clamp. Since our clamp broke, we're going to try to pinch the clamp as we pull off the line. If your clamp is intact, pinch the clamp, slide it up on the hose, and remove the line. Once our clamp was totally broke, we slid it up, and now we can remove the line off of the rack. Remove the line. Using a 12mm socket, remove the bolt for the power steering line bracket off of the rack. Using a pair of pliers, we're going to pinch the clamp for the return line, pull the clamp back, pull the line off of the reservoir. It's possible that fluid may come out, highly unlikely. Using a 17mm, we're going to remove the bolt for the union. Remove the bolt. We're going to push the line set down, through and out of the car. I'm just going to push it all the way down as far as I can from up top. Remove the line set. Install the line set into the vehicle. Work the top lines up. Install the supplied O-ring onto the feed line going into the rack. Install the line into the rack. Be sure that the O-ring is installed. Get the fitting started by hand. Install the power steering line bracket to the rack. Snug down the bolt for the bracket. Torque the bracket bolt to 20 foot-pounds. Snug down the rack line. Torque the feed line to 18 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench on it, do the best you can. Install the clamp onto the line. If the clamp is already on the line, pinch the clamp. Install the line onto the fitting. Be sure it's fully installed. Push the clamp all the way down. Remove the pliers. Be sure your clamp is fully installed. Install the skid plate onto the two bolts. Push it back into place. Get the front bolt started. Snug down the bolt. Do the same thing on the other side. Torque the front bolts to 25 foot-pounds. Install a crush washer on either side of the union bolt going through the feed line. Install the feed line onto the pump. Get it started by hand. When we torque the union bolt, we're going to make sure the line is not contacting the sensor. We're going to torque our line to 38 foot-pounds. Be sure you have a clamp on your return hose. Install the return hose onto the reservoir. Release the clamp. Be sure it's fully seated and on the back side of the rib. Remove the cap for the power steering reservoir. Fill the system with the proper fluid. With our reservoir filled, we're going to get the front wheels off of the ground, and we're going to spin the steering wheel lock to lock. Either way, we're going to do this 10 to 20 times. Continue checking your reservoir, making sure you have fluid. Once you're done bleeding, do your final check. Install the cap. Check our fluid level. We see that it's not on the cold yet, so we're going to fill our system. Almost there. Now that we have the proper amount of fluid, we'll start up our car, we'll run it, we're going to see if there's any whine to our power steering pump. If so, we have more bleeding to do. Keep going back and forth, lock to lock. Once your pump is nice and quiet, you have the proper fluid and amount in the reservoir, then you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.